Okay guys, now that we've done the underguard, we can continue with the front roller mounts. We're going to use the carbon um, multi-roller setting stay for the front and mount the rollers onto it. So nothing special, should be fairly standard in terms of fairly easy on how to build this part. We're going to be using this piece now, multi-brake set for MS. We're going to be using those pieces. I already have one that's open, so we're going to go ahead and use that. We're approximately going to need about 2 of them, one for each side. So we're going to be using the 2mm cap screws. That's where we're going to mount the 30mm bumper. I mean, basically the rollers are going to be mounted on the 30mm screw, and we're going to be using the lock nuts that are on the packaging. Alright, so 30mm right here. Okay, that's been mounted. We're gonna go get some 1.5mm spacer, put that there. Then we're gonna mount stabilizer. Okay, let's say after you've spun it and it sits in this position, what you actually want is for that part to be facing outwards and towards the front. So what you can do is you could take it and rotate it like this, so that that piece is now facing outward towards the front. And that's one of the ways that I adjust stabilizers on my cars. And as you can see, that's a 13, that's a 12, and that's a fairly good support right there at the top. Now we'll do the same thing on the other side. So this is fairly standard. So now the front rollers are mounted on the plate. Now we're going to lock this in. Let's go get some washers. Okay, that's the front bumper done. Now we can we're gonna go ahead and mount the side dampers. And when I build these side damper cars, I mean when I mount some side dampers, it's the way that I build them is a little bit different than the way most people would. Most of them would just mount it directly onto the side plate, the wings basically. What I do is I mount them a little bit lower than normal. The lower the dampers, the better the balance of the car. And you might want to compare the way I build this car compared to the way other people would build their tuned cars. And I will guarantee you that the balance on the way I build is a little bit better than if you just mount the side dampers directly here. So I had my 1.5mm organized. I think I may have pushed them out of position. Okay, so now the problem is looking for screws that are long enough to be able to allow us to mount these here. So what we're going to do is we're going to open the mass damper block set that we're going to be using for the back. But we're going to need their screws, so we need to set them apart. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to mount an additional 1.5 millimeter spacer on the screws that we're going to use to mount the side FRP piece, to drop this FRP plate about 1.5 millimeters lower. Now what that's going to allow you to do is that's going to allow you to get a little bit more balance, because the side damper is lower, and the lower you mount the dampers, the better the balancer is going to be. So that's what it's going to look like. But before we do that, we're going to mount the side damper, what do you call it, mounts for the dampers themselves. Okay, so take this off for now. We're going to go look for some screws that are fairly long. There's some 25s right here. Okay. Alright, so let's take these screws out. Let's go find some washers. Let's use that washer right there. We're gonna need two, one for each side. Get a spring washer, right? And then some normal nuts. You're gonna need a total of 6 of these smaller washers. So just to show you the extra 1.5 millimeters right here, right there, you see the spacers? That's what I did. That allows you to lower this a little bit, and it's still not going to be able to, you're not going to be hitting anything. Even the screw head over here on this side, nothing. So you're still good. The height is still pretty high. It's about 1.5 millimeters high, so that your clearance should be good on both sides. Doesn't matter which position. Okay, so let's go ahead and seal up this these mass dampers. Yeah, the heavy side first. Put the heavy ones in there. In addition to lowering the mass dampers a little bit, what that allows the mass dampers to do as well too is to give it a little bit more flex. Even though it's kind of stiff the way that it's mounted, you know, it's very, very strong, but this gives you a little bit more flex, and that allows the dampers to work just that slightly little bit better. Okay. Now that that is done, what we're gonna do next is mount the rear roller mounts first. We're gonna go do a fit to see how we want to do that, and we're gonna go take out the HG carbon reinforced white plate, and I'll explain to you once I have the rollers mounted. I'll show you what I mean by this this is a pretty good plate to use for 19 millimeters. Okay, so these two spots right here will be mounting on these two holes, and then what we're going to do is we're going to mount the ball ends basically on these here to lock it down on this side. So we're going to go ahead and do that, because we're going to go mount a hammer damper at the back. That's what I want to do. So that is the end caps. I'm gonna go mount the damper overhanging over here on this side later. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna screw this side down. Okay, so we're going to open another pack of the... Alright, so we're gonna need some spacers basically to be able to let us control where we're gonna put the rollers. And I think we're gonna need some 6.7 millimeter rollers. I think we need about 4, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that should be enough. Okay, now I'll explain to you guys why I chose to use this 3 millimeter carbon piece at the back of the car. Alright, I'll give you an example of 19 millimeter mounts on regular popsicle pieces. Look at here, this is my FMA body damper, reverse body damper. And as you can see, it's using regular 19 millimeter popsicles. Basically, that's the only thing you can mount. 19 at the front, 19 at the rear, and then I'm using the 19 millimeter 1319 2 millimeter plate at the front right here, and those are basically the same width. As you can see, there's a lot of room. There's about, let's take a Tamiya gauge. There's about an additional 2 millimeters room left right there. Right, let us take this car and slot it in, and if you look closely, there's a lot less room. Now, why is that? The reason is because this 3 millimeter carbon piece, the hole mounts are actually slightly wider than normal. So if you, let me slide this over, you barely have 1 millimeter's worth of clearance left. It doesn't even have 1 millimeter. So it's already touching. On the other one, we still had about 2 millimeter left. So what this does is that it maximizes cornering speed because the rollers are in wider positions. So if you're gonna use basically like a rear mount for what do you call it, a class that's already fairly limited, I would suggest trying to use this 3 millimeter piece where you have a little bit, you need a little bit more room, and you need to maximize as much speed as you can out of the category, and this is one of the things that'll allow you to do that. I'm going to do the brakes next. Alright, so this should be fairly easy to mount, fairly self-explanatory. Although knowing me, I'm going to need the instruction manual. Alright, so those are flipped over. That's mounted like that. This goes that way. Okay. Alright, that's not too tough to figure out. Brake and mount it like this. Like that. There you go. It goes this way. And this piece goes this way. And that'll allow us to mount some brakes. Mount the brakes over here on that side. Alright. So I keep dropping parts. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and mount some brakes. I'm gonna use the gray. I'm gonna go full gray on the back. Try to go slow when you're mounting your brakes so that they're even. Oh, before we do that, why don't we make sure that there's no dirt on the plastic before we mount the brakes. That'll make sure that the brakes bite and that they don't just peel off easily. Just take a cotton swab and then wipe this area of the brake just to make sure. Go slow, edge to edge. Okay. Use the ribbing to help you mount the brakes straight. Alright, so now that you've mounted the brakes, you have to mount the brakes onto the support structure for the actual car. Okay, so it looks like when you're mounting the brake, you gotta make sure that the way it's mounted is fairly even, so that when you're screwing the brake itself in, the holes will line up. So what I have to do was loosen these two screws a little bit so that the holes will line up nicely on each other. Okay, that's the rear brake. And now what we're gonna do is we're going to mount the mass damper block at the back over here. Alright guys, basically there you have it. That's how you build the an MA based beginner setup. Let's look at how long it is. There's actually still quite a bit of room. If we had a little bit more of a what do you call it, if we had a little bit more available parts that we could use, maybe I could extend the brakes a little bit further back. And there's still quite a few improvements. Alright, but I'll go through some of the setup that I realized there's some more parts that probably needed to be acquired when you build this car. If I remember correctly, I had to go get, you're gonna need 1.5 millimeter spacers. You're gonna need extra lock nuts, so buy more lock nuts. Let me see. I remember I had to go. You got to go get some more roller spacers, since we used 4 on the wheels right here on the axles. You're gonna be a little bit short, so you're gonna need to go buy another pack of roller spacers. You're also gonna need to go get quite a bit more normal spacers, like the 6.7, the 1.5s for sure. You need that for the car, basically this setup. And over here I had to use 3 millimeter spacers with the 6.7 so that it's still fairly well suited to the way that it's supposed to be built. And if you need to extend it somehow, you might need to go buy some FRP pieces that allow you to push it back, but we don't have that at the moment. The setup allows you to have some room in terms of basically upgrading. And let me see if I could put like, and what I suggest that you do when you build the setup is that for you to use polycarbonate body, because that's the easiest way for you to minimize the amount of weight that you need to go add. So something like an Avante Mark II is a fairly easy add for this kind of setup. So basically this, and make sure that when you cut the body, you don't run into any issues like of the mass dampers, like bouncing up and down and hitting the body, because you want them to be fairly smooth on their own. So there you have it. This has been my MA chassis beginner build. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please like, subscribe, and share. And thanks for watching. Go race.